Welcome to PressHerald.com. I'm Bill Nemitz, and with us today is former Massachusetts Congressman Barney Frank, now Maine resident.
Well, partly. You know, it's 50-50.
50-50. Well, that's close enough. You are on your way, as we speak, to the University of Southern Maine to take part in the lecture series on politics, then and now in Maine and the nation. I assume.
Yes, I think I'm then.
You're going to tell them all what's wrong, huh?
I think I'm then.
You're then. Well, we could use a little now, right now. What are you going to tell them? I mean, you've watched the past month, as all of us have, and you've been there, you've done that. Is it broken beyond repair?
Of course not. Look, and I'm surprised, frankly, at the lack of historical perspective people have. In 2008, in September, 5 years ago, George Bush, the Republican president, came to a Democratic Congress and asked Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi to help him deal with a terrible crisis. We didn't stop to argue about whose fault it was, and to do something, frankly, that we all knew it was going to be politically unpopular, this lending the money to the banks, and we did it without any hesitation. Hank Paulson, Bush's Secretary of the Treasury, has written a book, and he asked me to do the forward. Then President Obama and by the way, before that, when Bush was president, I didn't agree with a lot of it, but we did the prescription drug bill, which I didn't like. He did big tax cuts, I didn't like them. He got a lot of public policy through. They did No Child Left Behind. Again, I voted against it. But the system produced.
So
then,
what's wrong now?
The right wing took over the Republican Party and went on strike against rationality. Because in 2000, well, you laugh, but that's the fact. 2009, 2010, when we had a Democratic House, Senate, and President, we got an Affordable Care Act. Whether people like it or not, from the standpoint of being able to deliver, the system delivered. We passed the Financial Reform Bill, which I'm very proud of, and I think is holding up very well. We repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. People are making a mistake. The dysfunction, the inability to get things done started on January 3rd, 2011, when the Tea Party took over the Republican Party and one branch of the House. Because if you look at the years before that, things were working well. People may have liked or not liked the policy, but you didn't have any of this gridlock and high drama.
But by all indications, they're here to stay, at least for the short term. How do we go forward with this group if this is going to be
We can't.
If
the voters...
it's going to be paralysis?
No, well, the voters have to decide this. I think the voters are better than that. But look, that's the other problem with some of this analysis. It is, why are these 500 people, 550 people in Washington, as if they were autonomous, not doing better? The voters have a major say here. It was the voters who put one group of people in power in 2008, then changed their mind and put the opposite group in 2010. But in the American system, people forget, James Madison, the separation of powers and the checks and balances. So we don't, in England, if you win one election, you're in charge. But in America, you've got to win 3 straight elections to be in charge, and no one's done that recently. So the answer is electoral. Look, I think either the Republican Party, mainstream conservatives, we're not talking about liberals, we're talking about Bob Dole, George W. Bush type conservatives.
Some would call them liberals.
Crazy people would. But either they take back their party, or the voters then have to discipline that party. But yes, I will tell you this, if the Republican Tea Party dominated House of Representatives, that is, if the Republican Party can't break the stranglehold that the Tea Party has gotten on them, and it's, by the way, because they're all afraid of losing in the primaries to Tea Party people, then this will continue. Look, this is a democracy where votes decide things. There's no mechanical solution to a deeply political problem, and the problem is people in control of one house of the government who don't believe in government.
Well, Tom Allen, one of the other speakers at the USM series, has written a book in which he says that it's actually a conflict of what he calls worldviews, that there are such diametrically opposed worldviews that one side can't even comprehend what the other is saying. How do you, in these Tea Party districts, how do you persuade these people that the people they've elected right now aren't getting the job done and in fact are bringing the whole apparatus to its knees?
I don't think you can, but they're not the majority. I don't think you have to. I agree with Tom, this is conflicting worldviews. Now, the conflicting worldviews is only when you get the extremists. We have had in America healthy politics. The Democrats have believed more in a role for the private sector, for the public sector. The Republicans for the private sector. We've had a debate about where you drew the line. You push one way or the other. Now you have people who deny the validity of the public sector. And as long as they control one whole house, there'll be a problem. But I think the answer is this. I do not think they are a majority. I hope they're not a majority in the Republican Party. I hope the majority is a healthier, rational conservatism. Up till now, though, the more activist people have been winning because they vote in primaries. And what I hope would happen would be that, and some of them are starting to talk about this now. Some of the Republicans say, well, we've got to fight back and not simply be dictated to by those people. But if people who are afraid of the Tea Party continue to control the House of Representatives, there's no answer.
Now, here in Maine, we're dealing with our own brand of political strife. You've been here a while. What's your take on what's going on here in Maine? Is it a microcosm of what's happening in the country? Is it not that?
Not at the congressional level, obviously, although I think Senator Collins shows the tension there. And Senator Snow obviously was driven out to some extent by this problem within her party. Yeah,
right.
And and there's some tough choices ahead for Senator Collins. She's tried to straddle, but it's difficult for her, which she's got that kind of pressure. Obviously, where you have it in Maine, we have it in the gubernatorial situation, where there's more of a polarization. I don't think Paul LePage is a very different Republican than the other Maine Republican I can think of. Not just Snow and Collins, but Governor McKernan and other Republicans. And again, though, that's an electoral situation. Although obviously here it is complicated by that third-party candidacy. Yeah, but Elliot Cutler was my student when I was teaching at Harvard in the 60s, and I've admired him. But I have a fundamental difference with him when he talks about almost a plague on both your houses. Right. This is not a problem that's caused equally. There is a side that is rational and a side that isn't.
Your side is the rational side.
Yeah, I think people who say you can, well, you laugh, but
right.
do you think it's rational to deny that there's any problem with climate change, or to deny that evolution is a factor, or that if you don't pay the debts to the United States government, it's going to cause us economic problems? Now, those were not traditional mainstream Republican views. They're the views that are there, and I don't think saying, oh, you're equally guilty makes sense. I think that's frankly morally and intellectually lazy.
So what's your advice to Elliot Cutler? Get out? Become a Democrat
Yeah,
again?
run as in a situation where there was this kind of division, splitting the opposition, because I think he's clearly on the rational side, but splitting the opposition is a big mistake. I guess the best thing I would say to Elliot Cutler would be this. If you dropped out tomorrow, what do you think Paul LePage's reaction would be? He'd be very happy.
If he dropped out tomorrow? If Elliot dropped
No, he'd be very unhappy. Right. You're right.
Right.
I got it wrong. He would be. My advice to Elliot Cutler is he tells me that he thinks the Democratic Party is too influenced by the unions. I think, by the way, the unions wouldn't tell you that. They would feel that there are things that they have not gotten. I would ask people to tell me what the United States Senate or even the governors have done that was too pro. But I think when you have this kind of a very deep battle over fundamental issues, sort of pretending that you are above that battle is a great mistake.
What's your prediction if Elliot stays in?
I don't know.
Something you just can't call at this point, you think?
Right, and I don't think he can, because it's not noble yet. Suppose he does some public opinion polling that shows, no, he did very well last time. The Democrats had a wonderful candidate, but she did not turn out to be a good electoral candidate, although she would have been a great governor. And I know that because I always thought I was a much better legislator than I was a candidate. I was a terrible candidate sometimes that survived despite it. But I think that it'll be the public opinion polls. If in March there's a public opinion poll that shows that it's a genuine three-way race, that's one thing. If a poll in March shows that the race is two-tier, that Mike Michaud and Paul LePage are close and Elliot is down the team and would make a difference, then I think he would drop out. I don't think he's irrational in that sense. But I think so I would say at this point, he can't know what it will be. My own view is this, that is, I think that is likely to happen. I think the takeover of the Republican Party by the Tea Party and Governor LePage's temperamental and ideological affiliation with them on many issues has polarized things more. So I think that there is more of a recognition now that I think that sort of a unified opposition to this right-wing trend.
Voting, in other words?
Yeah, that a unified opposition to this right-wing trend is needed, that it's not about personality. And I think people would welcome Elliot Cutler joining the Democratic Party and becoming a Democrat. Look, I know Angus King said he was running as independent. My recollection is a lot of Republicans said, ho, 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 he's really a Democrat. I think they were right. And I mean, I admire Angus. If you look at his voting record, his role in Congress, If he hadn't told you he was independent, you wouldn't know that. You would think he was a Democrat, which seems perfectly appropriate.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have right now. We want to thank you for coming by,
Welcome.
Congressman Barney Frank, and thank you for joining us at PressHerald.com.